because they're not gonna care about, your bachelor's degree, your written papers. They're gonna look at your portfolio, the art you're producing. They're gonna, look at your technical and your art skills.
In this episode of the Fika Sessions, we sit down with character artist Océane Näsström to find out all we can about 3D character art for video games. Hi!
Hi!
Hi, welcome!
Thank you so much. I'm happy to be here.
Great, because I'm so excited to talk about this subject. It's kind of dear to my heart.
That's good. That's cool.
Good. This is the first time someone actually made their own Fika.
That's great to hear. I wanted to be creative.
It's very creative.
As an artist,
That's true.
Yeah, you have to have different creative sides of yourself.
True, they kind of curl up. They look great.
What do you think it is?
I don't know.
Okay, I can tell you what it is. It's like a combination of two things that are really good.
Yeah.
So they are called Cruffins.
Cruffins?
Cruffins. It's a combination of croissant, because of like the curly shape.
Yeah.
And a muffin.
Wow. You work here at Massive as a character artist.
I work here as a character artist.
Yeah.
And we do have Fika every Friday.
We do. It's very important.
It's important.
So you gather all the team and you have coffee.
Yeah.
And do you bake usually for that?
I sometimes do.
Awesome. But on a high level, what does a character artist do? Just a general description of the role.
Besides from baking,
we
do other kinds of baking in-game, like for 3D baking. But on a high level, I'm a 3D character artist. So I do 3D characters. I take the concept and I model it in a 3D software. And I push it into the engine. And there it is.
And then you play.
And then I play. I have to play test it. I have to see if everything is working, if the cloth is simulating correctly, if there's anything wrong with the textures, or in general, something doesn't look correct or in accordance with the concept.
Right. So before we move on, I have to ask, because I have it on the top of my head now, the word baking. You hear that so much, but what does it actually mean in this context? Not that context.
It's kind of similar to this context.
Oh, yeah?
So if you imagine this as a prop in-game, it's kind of low poly. You kind of see the faces sometimes. It's not like rounded and all that beautiful,
right,
as in the high poly. So you take the information from the high poly and you bake it into the low poly as a texture. And you combine all those textures to make it look better than it actually is.
All right, that makes sense.
It's like an illusion, a visual illusion.
That's how it works. I learned something today. I'm happy.
So this is like a high poly because you haven't applied some fake textures to it.
Right. I love how you brought basically props.
Yeah, I did.
For the people listening on the podcast, you just go to YouTube and take a look, because these are baked and beautiful.
I will show the recipe, maybe include it if people are interested.
True. Let's put that in the description. But how did you end up at Massive?
How I ended up at Massive? It's a long story. It's a lifetime story. So my interest for character arts, or art in general, games, started as a young kid. I grew up in the mid-90s. So we had a Nintendo 64. My parents would play a lot. I would watch because I was too scared of monsters and such. I would watch and I would like to draw the characters. So I like to draw from an early age, watch games, play games eventually when I had the guts. But we didn't have a good computer at home. So I didn't get to do all the technical stuff early on. I couldn't even play, the Kellogg's games that you got from the cereal packages. So I would just keep myself to just drawing on paper. So mostly 2D art, concept art, but it was mainly characters, creatures, so anything character related. I found it hard to do environments,
Right.
because you needed a ruler and you had to draw perspective lines. That was annoying.
Those are really annoying.
I wanted quick results.
Yeah.
I wanted to iterate quickly. So eventually I pursued my hobby of drawing. Went to engineering school, actually, in upper secondary school.
That's quite the shift.
Yeah, because I did like technical stuff, and I knew that I needed more of the technical aspects, because I had been practicing so much on my art skills,
right,
that I needed the technical skills as well. And it was media design kind of related school. So I had to test some Adobe softwares.
Right.
We had Autodesk softwares. So I got to try some 3D in Maya,
right,
which is the most common 3D software where you start out. All the basics are there. We also did some video editing, some photography, Photoshop. So learning basically all the groundwork in both movie and games.
Right.
We also worked in Unity. So we were able to place out props. So I learned all the basic technical skills from the school, and I applied at the same time my art skills. So that's the continuation.
Right.
After that, I wanted to continue this line of work because I was so intrigued of movies and games. So I found this school in Malmö, the city where we are at right now, called the Game Assembly. It's a vocational education.
Right.
So basically, it's different from a normal university, because universities, you write essays.
Can confirm that's what you do.
It didn't feel like the right way to approach the game industry,
right,
and my field of work, because they're not gonna care about your bachelor's degree, your written papers. They're gonna look at your portfolio, the art you're producing. They're gonna look at your technical and your art skills. And that's basically what the school focused on. Because it applied a lot of practical skills, and they had a good relationship with the games industry. So
you really had to work on you apply with your portfolio, right? To one
I
of those
did.
schools.
That's right. I took a year off and just worked on my portfolio. At the same time, I actually studied at the university. I studied Japanese.
Right.
Which I thought, like, okay, languages, it's gonna be fun. It was kind of hard. University is hard.
It is.
It's too many exams. But I managed to put out the portfolio out there. And I was pretty scared, because I knew that a lot of the people that managed to enter the Game Assembly were much older than me. And a lot of people have to reapply, because it's super hard to get in there. And they're pretty serious about what they're doing. But I managed to get in. And I studied really hard. We made some games. We made 8 games in total.
During, like, how long is the education?
2 years.
2 years. 8 games in 2 years. That's quite a lot.
Yes. And plus, your normal curriculum, you had to do some courses on the side to learn all this stuff.
Right.
So it was pretty intense. And the second year, you put out the portfolio. So I got into another game studio called IO Interactive. And that's just across the border.
Yeah, exactly. It's right across the bridge.
Yeah.
30 minutes to get from Copenhagen from here.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. Because I kind of wanted to be somewhere else. But it's also hard to leave home. You have to, apply for a new apartment.
Right.
You're pretty exhausted at that point. So you're like, okay, I'm pretty happy with Copenhagen. That's still like a change of space. It's new people. No one else from my from the Game Assembly went there that same year as me. So that was pretty cool. got to meet lots of awesome people, and I got to ship a game.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. But the contract I received was a fixed term.
Right.
So when that terminated, I applied for Massive because I had a lot of friends here. So I got a response, and now I'm here.
That's
it's a
quite
long
the
journey.
Yeah. I really want to ask before we move on about the portfolio, because that's obviously super important to create as an artist. What kind of tips would you give someone? Like, how big of a portfolio should you aim for? You took a whole year to create yours.
It is kind of hard. So it really also depends on, how good the average student is that is applying that year. But I was told to focus on producing assets the way you do in the industry.
Yeah.
So to show like that you understand the pipeline, that's really important to break down that you understand and can apply how they work in the industry. So that's important.
Yeah.
So whether it be 2D or 3D art, doesn't matter. It's good that you show that you can follow the pipeline. It's good that you have also time estimates. So don't work too long on an asset. You have to, of course, show technical skills. But what they're mostly looking for is your art skills, basically, because that takes a long time to learn. I mean, technical skills. You can learn tools in like from weeks to months. But the art skills are what matters in the end. And that takes years to hone. So they're really looking at, okay, how good are you on an artistic level?
Yeah. I like how you have to kind of research the game industry first.
Yeah.
Like you say, the pipeline, and then put that into the portfolio to get into a school to, I don't know, it sounds like a lot of preparation.
Yes.
To get there.
Yeah, I mean, I also did some life drawing as well.
Yeah.
On top of that, I showed some of that work. Because, as I said, that's what takes time. And also that you also have an interview, of course.
Yeah.
And you have to show your commitment because it is a tough industry and there's a lot of competition.
Of course. I can imagine artists, so there's a lot of competition.
Yes, extreme.
Yeah. But you didn't go to art school.
I didn't go to art school.
No.
I didn't feel the necessity at the time. Maybe, I don't know, maybe I should have. I don't think so. You're young, you think highly of yourself. You're like, okay, I've been doing art since I was a kid.
Yeah.
I've been always like the art kid that people walk up to. So I felt pretty confident about my skills, which is tough to say, but you can always improve.
Yeah,
and
of course.
That's always important to know, that always take critique.
Yeah. Being known as an art kid sounds pretty okay.
Yeah.
That sounds pretty cool.
That's pretty cool.
But now that your industry, if we're going to move to what you do on a day-to-day basis, like how does a typical day for a character artist look?
Typical day for a character artist. I work from the office, so I come in. I bike here, actually. And that kind of puts you in a good mood that's needed. I take my coffee and I go upstairs, sit at my desk. We have stand-ups, per usual.
Yeah.
Just check where everyone is at. And then I start on my task if there are no other meetings. Getting to the flow of like see where I'm at and opening up softwares. Have 2 screens. I maybe need 3, 4 actually, because you have so many software windows open at the same time. Maybe you have like I usually have the engine open to check the assets in game.
Yeah.
I have maybe Photoshop to have like the textures open as well, so I can go in and out, tweak some textures. Maybe I have Substance Painter open, which is the software where I do all the texturing, or maybe even Maya. I have like at least 4 programs open at the same time. So getting into that flow, that mindset of like, okay, where am I at? Where did I left off at? I have to check if the other softwares haven't died, because they have a tendency of crashing all the time.
Yep.
And artists struggle. Yeah, it is.
Yeah,
it is true. It's the
totally
worst thing to come to work and like everything is just crashing. All the softwares are crashing.
Yeah.
You have to redo work. That is frustrating.
But it has to be, and that's what I think about artists as well, is that you have to come in and be creative.
Yes.
Kind of, that's your big part of your job.
Yeah.
Every day working in a creative industry like that.
Yes, you have to really get into that mindset. So it's hard to work sometimes, a 9-to-5 job as an artist, because you have to get into that creative mindset, that artistic flow that I talked about.
Yeah.
Like sometimes I forget about lunch almost, because I'm like, I'm in the flow. I can't disturb the flow, because now I'm doing something and I'm soon done, and then something else happens or something crashes. That is part of it. It's a huge part of it.
Yeah. I was about to ask which tools you use, because we have had a couple of meetings before this.
Yeah.
And at some point I asked you, what tools do you use? And the list you gave me, you just went on and on and on.
Rambling on about tools. Yeah.
Me and
it is hard.
Philip, who was there as well, was actually right there. We were just sitting there. It's like, oh my God. Like I work in Word, basically. Word and Photoshop. It feels like those are my days. And you just have tool on tool.
It is quite strange to think about it as an artist, like coming from a more traditional way of drawing, pen and paper, to softwares, making 3D characters, making 3D models. You're suddenly like you need to learn so many softwares. Yeah. So it's basically, as I pointed out before, Maya is a good way to start. That's where you do all the generic 3D arts. So Maya, 3D software, and then maybe you go into like ZBrush, where you do more of the sculpting, like it's clay sculpting, but in a 3D space. And then you maybe move back to Maya to fix the topology of the high poly that you created in ZBrush. Yeah. And then maybe use another software to do the retopology, like Topogun, which is another software, but it's all optional. It's all about your own workflow too. So you don't have to feel restricted to one way. I mean, some people use Blender nowadays. It's pretty popular and it's for free. Yeah. So a lot of companies converting to free softwares. Yeah. And then maybe you start on the texturing, and that you're doing Substance Painter, Substance Designer, maybe some editing in Photoshop. And then you work in the engine. I mean, that's just to name a few softwares.
My head is just spinning.
Yeah.
Like it's so much.
Yeah.
Isn't it? How is that jumping between software?
How is that? It's smoother by the years. Like they're making that transition better. And depending on which company you work at, they sometimes develop tools to make it easier for us artists to jump between these softwares. Right. So we have like maybe an easy export button, and poof, suddenly the model is in another software for easy use and access, because that takes time.
How many times have you pressed the wrong keyboard shortcut?
Back in the days, multiple times. Sometimes I remember, in ZBrush or any software, you enter the mode by accidentally clicking something. You're like, what the hell happened to my interface? Like, I have to just quit the software and open it up again. But nowadays that rarely happens. I think it's ingrained in my head now. I know exactly, without thinking about it, where to press. But that is an issue in the beginning. But you're going to overcome it.
I can only imagine.
You can do it.
One thing that really fascinates me about your job, you talked about, you started out drawing and then moved over to 3D through engineering school helped you. But it's just this process of taking a 2D drawing, which is flat on paper.
Yes.
And then you turn that into 3D.
Yes.
It becomes an actual rotating.
Yeah.
How does that process look like? you have the 2D drawing from a concept artist, for example.
Yeah.
How do you
How do
move over? I think
Yeah.
just the idea.
It is, I mean, as I mentioned, you have to be aware of the softwares you need to use and in which order. But like we visualized it as in toy making. You get the blueprints of
Right.
someone, and that's basically the concept art. And you apply that to, like, as a toy maker, something physical, but in a 3D space, physical. So you're making an object that you can rotate, just like a toy maker.
Yeah.
Modeling it, texturing it, put it on the supply chain, and on it goes to another person, maybe the tech animator, and
Right.
so forth.
I just find that process,
Yeah.
as someone who was interested in art a long time ago, it's just, I think it's so cool to actually be able to move over to a more physical thing. Even if the 2D, of course, is very impressive and very nicely done, it's still, it becomes real.
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
It's just,
It can even become real if you 3D print it. Some
That's
people
true.
do that.
that's
yeah.
true.
That's pretty cool.
But how do you start?
How do I start?
Yeah. How does a 3D model look from the beginning?
From the beginning, traditionally it could be just a box.
Yeah.
Or you can use, you can take the concept art into a 3D software like Maya or Blender, and then you start adding topology on top of it.
Yeah, you used that word before.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
Topology is the construction of the model. Maybe you've seen like the square faces of a low poly model, if you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, now
Yeah.
we're getting into low poly and high poly, which I think
You
we're
see
gonna-
like a grid
Yeah.
of, that's basically what you start from scratch.
Right.
So you're building, it's like building blocks, it's like Lego kind of,
Yeah.
but hollow. So you're adding more and more blocks, and the more blocks you add, the more detail it's gonna get, right? So if you have just, a simple Lego block, it's just a block, but the more detail you add, the more blocks you add, the more detail it's gonna have. So that's kind of like topology.
Okay.
It's a grid.
So then you end up with the high poly one, right?
Yes.
Am I getting this wrong? Just let me know.
No, it is. I usually, as a soft surface modeler, I use ZBrush for that. It's more like clay sculpting.
Right.
And I mean, they calculate the topology in a different way. They use points, for instance. And yeah, you just add clay sort of, but in a 3D environment. And that's the high poly, usually in my case.
The very detailed.
Very
friendly.
detailed. Exactly. Just using your brush strokes to add detail. Compared to Maya, where you're like pushing, pulling vertices, adding new faces. It's more like technical. It's usually easier to apply on hard surface modeling, like, maybe this lamp. It's pretty, yeah, it has some normal geometrical shapes.
Right.
Guns, any weapons, much easier.
Yeah.
But when it comes to characters, you do a lot of the work in ZBrush when it comes to the high poly. And then you kind of go back and forth all the time.
That's the thing as well, bringing life to... You create characters that we'll talk a little bit about later, but they are supposed to come alive.
Yes.
It's
pretty cool, but it's also a combination of lots of people.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not only my work, it's the concept art team. And then I apply my skills and, the Océanesque added information to it. And then I hand it over to an animator, a tech artist, making the nice rig for it. The cloth is simulating, the hair is moving around in a nice way. The animators apply their animations to the character, and that's when it's also like the big step where it's coming alive too. And then the voice acting and level designers apply, where they're moving, where they are.
How do you interact with those other teams? Like, how does that relationship look?
It's sometimes we talk in person. Sometimes we don't always have time for that.
Right.
But that communication usually happens on software such as like Shotgun. It's a communication software. So we basically post our progress. We can see their progress. So it's very transparent and easy for each other to look at where we are. So I apply my model. I say it's done. It's poking the technical animator. So they know that, okay, it's my time now to shine and do my stuff. And you also try to write down all the feedback and all the communication through that software so that we can keep track on like what's happening on these assets.
Right.
So we have like a record of all the assets done and where we are at, because you can see like who's working on what and which stage of it is done. So that's how we're working.
So there's a lot of iteration back and forth.
Sometimes we try to have iterations, but sometimes you don't have time for it.
Right.
Sometimes you have to push it to a polish stage. So it really depends on where you are at in the timeline of the whole project or the assets.
Game development is complicated.
It is. You have to follow time restrictions.
Yeah.
It is hard as an artist. You just want to keep on iterating on the same thing, but in the real world, in game industry, you just have to keep on moving.
Yeah.
Have to produce stuff, and that's also important. As I noted before, for your portfolio to say that this took this amount of time, because they need to know that you're able to work on assets fast and like in a reasonable way.
Yeah. Yeah, we come back to that being creative, but at the end of the day, most days it's a job.
It is a job.
Yeah. So I can see like time restrictions and everything. Yeah.
And most jobs are like that.
Yeah, exactly.
So, yeah.
But how does it feel when the character starts, the tech artist, you go from concept art, you go to the 3D model, you give it to an animator, and that's when it starts to, I mean, it's come alive in a way already before, of course, but now it's actually
all
moving.
These steps.
Yeah. How does that feel, seeing
cool.
your character
It's kind
move?
of cool because usually when that happens, I'm working on something else. I've been working on lots of other things. And then you're seeing like this thing that you left a long time ago come to life. And it's moving. You can maybe play test it in the game, see it moving, being that character. That's pretty cool. And it's even cooler when the game is released and you're seeing the gamers interact with your characters. Like sometimes someone would poke me like, oh, hey, this YouTuber, he made a video about your character.
Right.
It's like, that's so cool. And they have so much, fantasy and imagination. They're applying that on top of all your imagination you applied and all the other people applied.
Yeah.
Making full videos about, just normal NPCs.
Yeah. Oh no, I can only imagine that feeling, actually seeing your characters in the hands of players. Not like a movie where you just sit and watch. Sorry, movie industry, that's not what I mean. They're amazing. But I'm able to basically do whatever I want with the character.
Yeah.
Just running into walls, so I feel like it. Like that must be a magic moment.
Yeah, that's also why I wanted to apply for the game industry.
Yeah.
It was either movies or games. They spoke more about the film industry when I was a kid, and there were a lot of schools that was more in that direction. And I guess I was lucky to find a game school. Yeah.
I actually want to bring up one thing that you made that I know a lot of people have probably played around with, which is a costume for Agent 47.
Yeah, it is. So it's the flamingo outfit.
I see. Yeah. So when you mentioned that the first time, I was like, "Oh, that's amazing."
I didn't know you knew about it.
No. I didn't know you made it. So,
but you knew about this costume.
I knew, but no, not that particular one.
Yeah,
I
okay.
don't know about all the crazy stuff they
Because
put in that game.
that's pretty cool though, because coming here from I Interactive, talking maybe to our tech artists, and I'm like, hey, I would like to have this for shader maybe or something else, and I'm using my previous work as an example, and I bring up this flamingo costume, and they're like, hey, you worked on this? I've been playing around with it. It's so cool. Like even people in the industry, play games too. We're humans too. We love games.
Yeah.
So it's so cool, and my peers are like, oh, they feel so respectful, and that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it really is like creating toys.
Yeah,
you brought that up before. I think that's a great
toys in a virtual space.
Yeah,
I mean that's a big thing now with VR and everything. So.
Yeah, but if I'm sitting at home and I'm interested in character art, I'm interested in 3D, or I want to bring my, as you did, like my 2D things into the 3D space. Where could I'm watching this right now. Where could I go? Do you have any good tips where I can get started?
You can start out on the internet.
Yep. That's a good place for everything.
Yeah, that's a good place. Just type in 3D art, and I'm guessing you will either get results from software such as Blender, which is for free, and Blender contains like all kinds of. It has sculpting tools, so it's a little bit like ZBrush. It has modeling tools, normal like Maya. You can render and do everything basically in Blender. So that's a good tool to start with. Yeah. You will also find results from, portfolio pages, websites, such as ArtStation.
Oh, yeah.
Back in my time, it was another place you would go to, but now it's ArtStation. That's pretty huge. Poly counts, so people from the film and movie industry or any other people who submit 3D or 2D arts go there, post their stuff. Sometimes they have breakdowns, which are great for learning. A
breakdown of how they made it from the beginning.
Exactly. Yep. You can also get in touch with artists that way. I've found some amazing concept art that way. I asked the artist, can I use your concept art and apply it to 3D? To create my own portfolio.
Right.
Because that's also a great way to start. You can find like a really nice piece of art, like, hey, I want to make this in 3D.
Yeah.
It would make good for a portfolio, because it's good that you show that you can follow a concept art.
That's a really good point.
Yeah.
So basically start looking for these kinds of software and then learn, of course.
Yeah, learn the softwares, go to the forums, Polycount, ArtStation. GDC has a lot of great talks. There are a lot of free talks about art.
Yeah.
YouTube, there's ZBrush Central has a lot of masters of the industry talking about, their technical approach on how to do character arts. So there's a lot of like character art specific topics in every corner of 3D art that you can find.
That's amazing.
So all the softwares have, talks on how to do everything for free.
Yeah.
It's really easy.
No, it's really great to be able to not only tools like Blender that you say is free, but also Unity is free to start playing around with Unreal if you want to go that route. So that's amazing. But I'm gonna say it again, all the links in the doobly-doo. So people can go look it up.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of information.
It's going to be a lot of links.
Because there are so many options you can go, so many ways you can work and put out your arts.
Yeah.
Because not everyone uses the same softwares. Some are more comfortable in maybe Modo compared to Maya or 3ds Max.
Yeah. This list is just
growing
now.
Yeah, let's not go to that.
But education as well, like going to school seems kind of important.
Yes, it is very important to be able to cooperate with other people.
Yeah.
And doing cross-disciplinary work. That was great with the game assembly, for instance, because we had programmers. So we had people who studied programming. We had level designers, and now they have more courses.
Yeah.
I did the art. So game art was my kind of education there. So you learn how to cooperate and how they're working, and you learn how to work together as a team of people, and that is really important because a lot of artists just work for themselves. Maybe they've been freelancing for a long time. So when they apply for a job, like a full-time job at the game industry, it could be a hard match because you have to be able to, work with the team. You have to mesh with everyone, the other disciplines too. So it's a good process to be able to go to school, learn to work with other people, learn to take feedback.
Yeah. Now that's a skill.
Yeah, that is a skill. It's hard as an artist because I can only speak for myself, but you always see like the wrong things or like everything bad about the art you're making.
Yeah.
And to be able to be vulnerable and show what you're working, also in progress work, which is also really like, you don't want to show anyone what you're doing because it's just in progress. You see that everywhere though.
Yeah.
VIP work in progress everywhere, like I'm not done with this, but it's kind of done. But you don't want to say it's done because it's really ugly in your mind. And you need critique. And that's hard to accept that I actually need, but you're trying to be really
because it becomes a part of yourself in a way.
Yeah, exactly. It's really hard. But it's so good. You're evolving so much when you get feedback.
You know what?
It's time.
I think it's time.
Oh, I'm so hungry.
I'm super hungry.
I just want to stuff them all in my face. Can I have all of them, maybe? You look really hungry. Maybe
can I take a part? Can I take like a raisin?
I think you can choose yours first. You deserve that.
Thank you. You deserve one as well. Do you want with raisins?
I don't mind. Whichever you don't want, I can take. I think they're all delicious.
I want one with raisins.
You can have one with raisins.
Did you try these before? Like, did you have an extra one? And then
I made this yesterday evening, so I haven't had any yet.
Don't fall.
But I've made this recipe before, and I know they're delicious from past experience. So yeah,
let's try it.
Just
you
dig
don't want
in.
It?
Yeah, I want to take maybe this one.
I'm gonna get sugar all over myself.
It's really.
Is it okay if I lean forward while we're recording this? Like
it's
George
really
is just he doesn't care. And Ella is just nodding her head. Okay, let's start. How do I eat this? Like,
I take chunks of it.
You just tear it apart?
Yeah, I don't want to dig into it because you're gonna get like the sugar powder all over your face and it's gonna look really wrong.
Yeah, that's what and the first thing I do is drop raisins on the floor.
Yeah.
We have to clean this place up.
I
dropped another raisin.
I did too.
That's perfect.
Some people really hate raisins, so I really struggled because I was like, shit, maybe he doesn't like raisins. Who knows? A lot of people don't. Yeah. Oh, I thought you took all of it in your mouth. I'm like, where's the rest of it? I thought the rest of it was in your mouth. Yeah, that was a big chunk,
This was really good.
That's good.
I have it stuck in my teeth now. Won't look good on camera. These are really great. Thank you for making these.
You're welcome.
And I didn't mean to drop the raisins on the floor. They were really good as well.
They're kind of like just sitting on top, bound to fall off. So it's not only raisins. There is some. Can you taste it? Maybe. Can you taste something else?
There's something.
There's some orange in it. So I put some orange zest and orange juice, mixed it into the dough. It's really delicious. So it's not like normal baking dough.
Yeah, you can feel a tang. Definitely. These are really good. But thank you very much for coming. I still have it stuck in my teeth, so I'll take that again. Thank you so much for coming. It's been fantastic. We've learned so much.
I'm happy to be here and like thank you for having me.
Of course.
It's great to talk about what I'm doing. It's kind of sometimes hard to talk about yourself and your story, but it's fun to be here and to eat fika.
Thank you so much for joining our Fika today. We put a bunch of useful links in the description, so make sure to check those out if you want to learn more. Also, remember to like, subscribe, and all that fun stuff you do on the internet. Until next time, take care.